Hi, can you see me?
You did.
Sorry.
No, it's all good.
Um,
How are you?
yeah, I'm ready.
You ready?
How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I think I think that's like happened at one other time I've done these where someone's tried to do it from their laptop. I don't know why you can't do it from your laptop. It's weird. So,
I don't know, but
how are you doing?
I am nervous.
It's gonna be great. Um, all right, well, we can get started. I wanted to introduce Tarena. Do you want to just tell people about what you do, kind of where you're from, and a little intro spiel?
Sure. So I'm Tarena. I am originally from Gary, Indiana, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now, although I've moved around several different places. So now Charlotte, North Carolina is home, and I am a management consultant, strategic advisor, and certified online business manager. And I work hard to help my clients make their businesses more profitable.
I'll just give a little intro to me too. I am a positive psychology coach. I've been working with individuals who want to make a career change or want to start their own business and kind of merge what they're passionate about, but then also looking at their strengths and sort of aligning that as they're going through that process. Positive psychology largely is based around like looking at your strengths, what you already do well, and kind of try to help people infuse that into their work. So Tarena and I know each other from one of our business accountability groups. Tarena's been great with spearheading that group, keeping it organized, keeping all of our calls together, and it's a great group. Recently started, I guess, a couple months ago, but
Mhm.
very supportive. I definitely recommend accountability groups for anybody who is on the entrepreneurial journey. And I wanted to chat with Trina today. We've talked a little bit individually, and I think Trina has such a cool story. And so like I had posted, she's an Air Force veteran, and she is trying to or starting a community to help other women who are entering back into civilian life and leaving the Air Force and military and not wanting to necessarily just take the normal career route, trying to reinvent themselves through a career, but want to try to start their own business. And so you're kind of helping them with the different angle of, the mindset, the whole emotional, social process of, getting reestablished into civilian life after the military. And then this other piece of started the difficulties of starting your own business and helping them with the tech, the systems, and getting started with that. So I thought it would be awesome to have you on and share your story and talk to people about your journey with the military and then where you are now and kind of where you see the vision of what the work you're doing and how it's going to help women. So yeah, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Um, so the first question I wanted to touch on was just sort of, your journey from going from the military to where you are now with the work you're doing and what that's looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's clearly very different from my military days. There's a lot more freedom for sure. Um, and it's been a long journey too. So I went into the military in 2001. So this would actually, 2021 would be 20 years for me if I'd stayed in. And so I've learned a lot along the way. Like I was telling somebody yesterday that the military starts you off doing things that it takes civilians years like of schooling to do. And so like I've been doing program management and, operations management and things like that since it might sound extreme, but since I was 19, 20 years old. And so that is what brings me to what I do today. It's all the same stuff. It's just now I'm a civilian and now it's my business rather than working for somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, what makes the work that you're doing now so meaningful for you?
Several things. So I've always been like obsessed with women in business, always since I was a little girl. So I knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur since childhood. I knew that I wanted to work with women entrepreneurs and helping them build their businesses and grow their businesses. And so that means a lot to me, right? The work that I'm doing, I'm very passionate about. And I'm working with people that I want to work with and enjoy working with. But there's also, other things on the more personal side of it. I have kids, and so I want to provide them who you already know, but I have to give the disclaimer to the audience. My kids homeschooling here in the office with me, so you're going to hear them in the background. Um, so they are my why. I didn't grow up with a whole lot. My parents tried, but I don't have the upbringing that my kids have now, which I'm thankful for. I want them to have a different experience from me. But I also, when I'm no longer here, I want to leave them something so that they are comfortable, in their lives after I'm gone, after their father is gone. So that is the reason why I do what I do.
Right. And I know you touched on this a little bit, but and you've talked about how you love talking about business in your spare time and just learning about business, chatting with other people about it. So again, like when you think about why it's so important for you to have your own business, why did you choose that versus, oh, okay, I could, you could go into a career with the work you're doing. There are a lot of jobs out there, a lot of security, but what's kind of driven you with, creating your own business?
Well, first and foremost is because I always wanted to. I just have always had the vision. So I learned at a young age that I was capable of creating whatever I visualized. And I just said one day I'm going to own my own business. Even back when I was in the military, even before that, in my teenage years, I was very entrepreneurial, excuse me, and doing things that would move me forward in life. So I didn't spend a lot of time hanging out with friends, mostly because my father was strict, and so he wasn't having it. But when you live in that type of environment, I mean, he wasn't overly strict, but when you live in that type of environment, you can either not do a thing or you can figure out a way to like make the best use of your time. And so that's what I did. And, I went to night school for nursing. I wanted to be a nurse. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to take college classes while I'm in high school. I was in ROTC. I was hitting honor roll. I was making sure that I was setting myself up to be successful in whatever it was that I was going to do after high school. But I knew that ultimately I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So every step that I have taken up to this point was to make sure that I was able to get to this point where I could run my own business. So I kind of forgot your question, but but that's the gist of it. Like, I always wanted to do it, so I'm doing it.
That's great.
Yeah. And then there's also like, so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But like certain experiences in working in corporate, you know what I'm saying? Like it's just not it's more often than not in my experience been hostile work environments. And everybody is stressed and it's just unhealthy, and I didn't want to keep working that way.
Right. So kind of your own emotional well-being.
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we've talked a bit about strengths, and I know you are more familiar with your strengths than probably most people are. But what are some of the strengths that you feel like have helped you with your business journey?
Well, I'm very heavily strategic, and I'm talking about Clifton Strengths exclusively. So I've taken other stuff, but I'm not as familiar with those results as I am with Clifton Strengths. So I need to actually like read them. But Clifton Strengths, I am very strategic. I'm very relationship driven too. So that is, bless you. I'm setting my business up to where I can be the strategist rather than having to do all the implementation, because the implementation is draining for me. And that's been the majority of my career has been implementation, just because that's a part of the game. I come from an IT infosec background, which means you have a lot of hands-on work to do. And that's cool if that's what you love to do. But I always kind of felt like, before I understood that I'm more strategic, I almost kind of felt like something was wrong with me, because I'm like, why don't I enjoy what I'm doing? Like so many other people love what they do. How come I don't love what I do? You know what I'm saying? And it's because it just wasn't in alignment with who I am and what I want to do with my life, you know. I'm very visual, very much a visionary, so I can see a clear path through a problem. I just, when it comes time to actually do the work that it takes to get through that, I can do it for myself, but I don't, you know, I feel like I would almost be doing a disservice to somebody who is wanting to pay me for the implementation part, because it's like, okay, well, you know, I can do it, but, uh, you know, like it takes a lot out of me to do that.
Right.
And I was talking to someone else recently too about the whole relationship building aspect. I think it might have been you, or you were saying like that's not marketing. Like building relationships is not marketing. I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, it is. You know, go
Yeah.
sit down. Yeah, and so that's how I market is, you know, everything else feels very like forced and mechanical to me, but talking to people one on one or even in small group settings works really well for me and has worked well for me. So that is how I've been getting clients, is just talking to people, you know?
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so interesting because I don't think a lot of people are fully aware of their strengths. And it's such a difference with, just, like looking at your energy and you saying, like, I was really drained and I was trying to implement all the time and felt like
Mhm.
something was wrong with me. And that's something I talk a lot about with people I work with is it's like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just not aligned in the things that you naturally do well. And a lot of that is just, that first developing that awareness with yourself and, then making small shifts, initially, if you can. Obviously, if you're a business owner, you have a little more freedom to do that. But, I think there are small shifts you can still make if you have a corporate job working for somebody else. For you, was that kind of what clicked for you when you took the Clifton Strengths Finders and then you're like, oh man, that's why I don't like implementing. And
Yeah.
that kind of the turning point for you with that?
Yeah, it was a big aha moment, excuse me, because so much made sense,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So my top strengths are intellection, input, adaptability, empathy, and relator.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's totally me. Like input means like I'm collecting data all the time, which I am. I will collect, like I'll sign up for all the things, all the newsletters, all the classes, I'll sign up for all of it. And to the point where I'm overwhelmed. I'm
Mm-hmm.
double booking stuff. I have to choose which one I'm going to attend because there's so many things I sign up for.
Yeah.
And it's because I need to feel prepared for whatever it is I'm doing, right? So if I don't feel like the expert in what I do, then I feel like I can't serve anybody. So I study a lot. I read a lot. I'm always in a class, always doing professional development or, you know, whatever I feel like can just enhance
Mm-hmm.
my skill set. And so that makes a lot of sense. Um, you know, the intellection part, that means that I need to always be able to have space to think. So I need a lot of quiet time. I need a lot of space to myself. And some people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even in my own family, like the people who know me well, like my immediate family, my siblings, my parents, they understand that about me. But extended family, some of them even don't understand that, even to this day, that I need, you know, personal space and I need to kind of step back and go be off on my own. Otherwise, I kind of feel like, you know, information overload is too much for me, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it can, I guess, to people on the outside looking in, it kind of comes off a certain way. And it's like, I'm not standoffish. I just need to reset, you know, and that's the way that I reset. People have a different way,
Mm-hmm.
different things that work for them. And that's what works for me, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially if you have input's one of my strengths too. So if you're having all of that information coming at you, you need time to
Yeah.
digest it, process it,
Hmm.
think about it. So yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching that or who will watch this that aren't familiar with strengths, a lot of times these assessments you can take and it's kind of like if you're breaking it down to the Myers-Briggs or something where you're just figuring out kind of who you are and what you naturally do well. And then, especially with the entrepreneurial, it's important to align with those things because there's so much work involved. And if you're not, using and capitalizing on your strengths, you're going to end up being burned out. You're going to be doing every different thing. And
Yeah.
so I think that's great that you already kind of know, like, you like to do the strategic stuff, relationship building. And that was the first thing I noticed in our group was like, you reached out to all of us individually. You were really great about trying to make a personal connection, which I appreciated. So, and I do think that is a marketing strategy.
Mhm.
You know, it may not look like a funnel or
Right.
a lot of these other things, but people, I think, especially now, are craving that human contact, that that attention. So,
Yeah.
um, this is something that comes up a lot, and I think maybe more so with women, just the way we're kind of socialized, even still today. But confidence seems to be a huge barrier, I think, with people, not just even in with building a business, but just in general. A lot of people have, I've done calls with they come to me and say, I just don't have the confidence to do this. I just don't have the
Mhm.
confidence. And, it's interesting to see that pattern continue to come up. That's why I like to ask this question in these interviews, because I'm always curious what helps other people with their confidence. Like, what's kind of kept you confident with going after your goals?
Um, because I want them. On the most basic level, it's because I want them, right? And I'm not going to be stopped. But that's just who I am. But I deal with confidence stuff too. Like, for whoever watches, like this is my first live ever, and I'm nervous as hell. You know what I'm saying? So, and I had a lot of moments leading up to, this live where I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, I'm scared. I don't know who's going to be watching, and I still kind of feel that way. But at the same time, I have to keep pushing because I have other things that I want to do. I have things that I want to do in my business. We talked about the community I'm trying to build.
Mhm.
Um, I want those things. I want a lot of other things too, but I keep my mind focused on the things that I want, the things that are going to bring wholeness to my life. Like I already have that, but there's more that I want for myself, for my kids, for my family. And I'm not going to be stopped. I'm going to keep going until I get those things. And so whatever avenue I have to take to get me there, um, that's what I'm going to do. Also, I'm big on like following the flow of things, if that makes sense. So, a lot of people say follow your intuition. I'm big on that too, but I also feel like things happen for a reason. So, like, we're here on this live for a reason today.
Mhm.
It came up in our conversation, our one-on-one conversation. You presented it to me for a reason, right?
Mhm.
And so I do like to sit back and kind of examine, um, any opportunity that opens up to me. Like, is it in alignment with what I want to do? Is it good for me? Is it not good for me?
Mhm.
And I'll think about those things. And if I come to the conclusion that, it's not bad for me, so why not? And I just go with it. And not everything is like that. There are some things that I have turned down because it's just
Mhm.
not, I don't feel in tune with it. And I don't feel bad for that, because it's like if I don't feel right about it, then going along with it is not going to make things better. It might send me down a different path. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And so really it's just listening to my gut and kind of just following the flow of, he said you, following the flow of, whatever comes up for me.
Yeah, so it sort of feels like a combination of being open, when opportunities present themselves, kind of taking a moment and like a gut check and saying, is this going to be good for me? And then I like that you brought up, having a clear vision of your end goal and whatever
Mhm.
that might be, because I know our end goals often evolve, things change, but knowing that that's there and then seeing this as one step to get you there. So,
Mhm.
because I know when I asked you, hey, we should do a live, and you were like, there was that moment of, hesitation, but it was cool because then you said, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. I know I need to push through
Mhm.
whatever. And I think that's part of it, is there's the fear, and then you just kind of have to find a way to push yourself through. It's not like the fear wasn't there. It's not like the confidence just was there. The confidence
Mhm.
comes with taking those steps and sort
Right.
of believing in yourself and knowing that, you seem very driven off of, I know that this is what I want and no one's going to
Mhm.
stop me. And I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of that resiliency came from your experience in the military and your background. So, there's that factor there with like what's your background and what's kind of helped you build those muscles over the years. And now you're able to implement them with your business journey.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then speaking of fears, that was my next question. Do you still have recurring fears that come up? You're trying to sort of build out a new, I would say like a different sector of your business even.
Mhm.
And so what fears continue to come up for you, and how do you find a way to work around those?
Um, I guess my biggest fear is that this will all fall apart. That's the biggest fear is, um, can I really make this happen? And if I can't make this happen, then what? And I do have belief in myself, a very, very strong belief in myself. And I know what I'm capable of. I've proven it to myself time and time again. But that's probably my biggest fear is that this won't work out. Not just the community for veteran women, but like the whole business journey, period. And it's because I'm not just responsible for me anymore. When I became a mom, then it was like, uh-oh. Now I have these now it's real for me. Now I have these little lives, that I'm responsible for. And, that's the biggest fear is, being able to take care of the people I need to take care of.
Yeah, and so when that fear does come up, what kind of keeps you coming back to, okay, I'm gonna still keep doing this?
Well, so before I get into that, like it's important to know kind of where I come from, which is, like I mentioned before, I'm from Gary, Indiana. Not a lot of people know my personal backstory, but it is a very tumultuous one. And so I know what it means to be poor, like poor, poor, And so I know what the outcome can be if things don't work out, if things fall apart. And that is what keeps me moving forward. Because it's like I'm not going back there, you know, and I don't want my kids to have to experience that kind of life. So that is what keeps me pushing even through the fear.
Mhm.
Like I'm going to make this happen, you
Mhm.
know. I don't
Yeah,
have to.
yeah, it's a lot of good positive self-talk, or just
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, focusing on moving forward and not focusing your attention too much on the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
Which I know that we all kind of have those moments where, our brain goes to, this is the worst thing that can happen. And,
Yeah.
also good to say, well, what's the best thing that could happen, and kind of give yourself a spectrum, because it's going to fall somewhere in between there, and it's
Mhm.
likely not going to be the worst case. Off, we just, our brains go to that.
Yeah.
Really. So what support has helped you with turning this work you're, passionate about into a business?
Well, my family, of course. They, very supportive and understanding that I'm building a business and giving me the space to do that. Also, investing in myself too. And that's how we found each other because I decided to invest in myself. Shh. Um, I had a business before this one
Mm-hmm.
where I was doing cybersecurity consulting for other small businesses. And that was back in like 2014, 2015 timeframe. So I had that business for a few years and it did open up some really good opportunities for me. But the one thing that I didn't do was like, I didn't have a coach. I didn't really invest in any business training. I just kind of like went out there on my own. And I'm actually glad I did it. Like, I'm glad I had that experience because now I know a lot about business from that respect. Shh, sorry. Um, and this time I decided to do it differently. So I'm like, okay, I do need like I need a coach, I need community, I need resources that are going to help me not only like understand how to build a business, but the mindset behind it too, because that's so important. I didn't have that before, and what I ended up having to do was close that business because it didn't make any money. Like I was traveling to like Microsoft and Sony and all these big companies, and I made $0 in that business. Like, how is that possible? It's because I had no clue what I was doing. If I did, then it probably could have been something bigger today. But ultimately, yeah, go ahead. Ultimately, that business, like what I was doing in that business, I really didn't want to do anyway. So it was for the best that I walked away from it. But this time around, having gained the knowledge that I gained so far and the experiences and meeting the people that I've been meeting, that has been super valuable. And the community that we're in, the larger community too, but our smaller community that we're in
Mhm.
together, that has been kind of a saving grace for me more times than I can actually count, because there have been several times where I felt like maybe I just need to let this go. Like I just started my business back in, like officially, I started the business in 2018 because I just knew I wanted to do something. And my business originally started as like a career strategy type of thing for veterans, but I didn't really want to do that either. I don't want to go work in corporate. So I'm like, I don't really feel like I'm the person to coach people to go into that, to
Mhm.
go that route rather. Um, but doing We Should All Be Millionaires, which we're in, that's what has been like really helpful in keeping me focused and one foot in front of the other with this business thing, because it can be hard at times.
Mhm. Yeah, so I think, yeah, having community, having a network, um, having obviously people immediate in your life, friends, family that are supportive, and yeah, investing in yourself.
Thank you. I love this. Okay, go put it down.
But
He's
um,
meowing.
I like that drawing. So, yeah, I think it's, yeah, investing in yourself. I can see how, if you're just, oh, I want to start a business and, doing a lot of the times it can be a solo journey if you don't have a couple people with you. Sometimes people have a couple people start up, but there's so much stuff that comes up mentally and things that you're not prepared for, things that you wouldn't have thought of, and you need support. Like, if I have questions, we can, on our group calls, I can just say, "Hey, I'm thinking about this, and I don't know. What do you all think?" And
Mhm.
usually, someone in the group has something to offer and a perspective that I wouldn't thought of, or a connection, or "Hey, look at this group," or "Hey, why don't you try this?" And I think it's really important to have that support system, and whatever that looks like for you. If it's your partner, your family, or having small groups that you get together with, or investing in coursework or coaches. I think that you need all the support. You need like a team of, helping you. So
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. So, talking about, if a lot of why I do these interviews is to help people who are at that beginning stage, or who maybe want to start their own project, or their own business, or make some sort of transition in their work life. And I think that it all starts with an idea, and it's hard to get from that idea, or like, I don't know if this is realistic, and then turning it into something. And so I was wondering what advice you would have for somebody who's sort of at that stage of kind of dragging their feet, or just a little nervous, scared with their idea, and don't know even where to get started.
Yeah, so I can totally relate to those feelings. And even now, I haven't quite been in business for a full year officially, but I still battle with that a little bit. And my advice would be it might sound cliche, but to think about what it is you want in life, and how your business can get you there. Because what's the statistic? Only 3% of people who are working in corporate will become millionaires or something like that, or maybe it's smaller than that. I can't remember, right? But it's a very small amount of people in this world who are going to become millionaires by working for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there's a limit. There's a glass ceiling. There always will be. And depending on who you are as a person, there's going to be all other limits too that you have to, or other hurdles that you'll have to um, find your way around. Do an analysis on that. Is that what you want? Or would you rather, go into business for yourself and free yourself from that? And I'm not saying that, you can't go to corporate and feel free, but for me personally, that's not my lane. I've known it since way back in the day. I know it today. And I know that the only way for me to really do the kind of work that I want to do, live the kind of life that I want to live, I have to be in business for myself. And as far as fear, it's always going to be there. Um, there's not really anything you can do to kind of get rid of it. Mindset work is constant work, but it's something that you should prioritize for sure, right? You got to start with that. Um, what you think and believe, that's going to be what you manifest. I believe that. you know.
Mhm.
And so even when I have fears come up and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, you know, I try to replace that thought with like, I'm doing it,
Mhm.
right? So I started it, I did it already, I'm doing it up to this point, and I'm going to continue to do it. Um, and I'm also very driven. I always have been. I know what I want and I get it. I make it happen, however long it takes. And so I think that that's helpful too, is just kind of knowing who you are, knowing what you want, and just being relentless in going after it, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned earlier that you tend to visualize what you want, and that's been a process for you that's really worked. So having that clear vision, having that clear and goal of what you want, and then it's, you know, your brain is like, okay, that's what we're doing this, we're going after that, and it's just a matter of, you know, how do I get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So I would love for you to share some of the projects you're working on now, the ones you're excited about. I know we've talked about this, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell people kind of what you're doing now and building, and I think it has a lot to do with, you know, your own journey and where you
Mhm.
are now. So,
Yeah, so on the consulting side, I just onboarded a new client. So I've been working with her for this will be week 2 of our endeavor. And I really like working with her. I'm helping her get her operations and things like that in order. She's a cyber consulting firm. That's what she runs. So it was almost like kindred how we found each other. She found me, but my background and skills happened to match exactly the different things that she needed help with in her business. And it really didn't take a whole lot of like talking to get to the point where now we're, you know, in a engagement together. So that was really cool. And then on the other side of it, so we've talked about the community I'm building for veteran
mhm.
women, and it's a business training and community platform that I just decided to get it off the ground. I've been thinking about it for years, and this was something that I needed for myself. A huge missing piece in the veteran community, for veteran women specifically. I'm in a part of I'm in a few different communities actually for veteran people in general and then veteran women, but they're all spammy. All everybody wants to do is sell, sell, sell. And I'm like, nah, that doesn't really do it for me. I went to a training, this was years ago, back in 2013, and I was big pregnant with my youngest. And I probably should have just waited until after he was born. But I was like, no, I want this now, so I'm going now. And it was a it was in Chicago, and it was a training for veteran women and women who are spouses of military. And I mean, the experience was nice, right? But I walked away not knowing a whole lot about what to do with all the information that they gave us. So they had a training component before you go to the conference. The training component is like 2 weeks, where you take all of these different business classes. They send you your textbooks, and it was very college like.
Yeah.
Um, Then we went to the conference in Chicago, which was 2 or 3 days, something like that. Then after the conference, you go back home and there's a final piece that you have to do, but it's still very classwork like.
Mhm.
And at the end of all that, I still like, okay, I don't know what to do with all this information. Like it's a lot of information. And so ultimately none of that helped me. And
Mhm.
I didn't really make a whole lot of connections. That might have been my fault. I was, carrying a baby and I was tired and all that kind of stuff. So um, but ultimately it just didn't align with me. I'm very introverted. I don't like networking events, which is why I've been thriving in the virtual networking space because I
Mhm.
prefer to do it that way, right? Which I didn't even know until COVID hit, and then we were
Mhm.
forced to do it that way, right? But I've always been kind of awkward in in-person networking events. I I know now that people would like pick a buddy to go with or a friend to go with, and that kind of makes them feel more comfortable. But me, I would go by myself. And so it's like, I don't know anybody here. Like, I don't know how to start a
Mhm.
conversation with anybody. Now, and this was several years ago, now I could probably kill it, right? I know how to turn it on and off as far as being introverted, but I prefer to like do this like we're doing now.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, that experience, going to that conference and stuff like that, it really left a lot to be desired. To no fault of anybody involved, but it just didn't work for me. And so I was like, okay, I need something where I can like be in community with people that I vibe with and still be learning how to grow a business. I didn't want to go the government contracting route, which a lot of that stuff is focused on. I wasn't thinking about having a brick and mortar storefront or anything like that. I had two small babies, so I needed to work from home. So I'm like, okay, I need to build a business online. I need to do it now, and I need support, right?
Mm.
All of that was missing, you know, all of it. And so I decided to create what I needed and still need. And I wanted to make a space for veteran women to just like unwind and, let our hair down. We don't have that. And we can't, it's military culture. You can't speak freely, you know. You can in the privacy of your own home. Um, but at work, you can't say what you want to say. It's nothing like civilian world, you know. That's one of the key differences. You kind of have to like just kind of eat it. I mean, you do have the opportunity, like if you're emotional and stuff like that, or you feel upset about something, you can tell somebody you feel pissed off, right?
Mhm.
That's the one thing that you can do in the military culture where it's frowned upon in civilian culture. But that's pretty much it. You don't get to say what you want to say or do what you want to do and somebody not have a problem with it, not take issue with you for it. And so, yeah, I wanted to create that. I wanted to have a space where women in particular can, share their experiences being in the military because it's not easy for women in the military at all. So share those experiences, but also, let's support each other. We all want to build businesses or we all already have businesses. So let's lift each other up and let's, get out here and put veteran women on the map. Like there's so much diversity and inclusion talk now, but I don't hear a whole lot of talk about veterans, right? Hiring veterans and working with veteran owned businesses. And maybe there is some out there and I just don't see it,
Mhm.
right? But that's my big mission, is to encourage people to hire veterans because we've been trained from as early as 17, 18 years old to do the things that it takes other people years to learn those skills, excuse me. And so, we're hardworking, we're driven, we're going to get the job done, we're reliable, right? So hire a veteran, that's
Mhm.
my mission.
Right. Yeah, I love that. We talked about this individually, but you kind of seeing that gap with, not want, women who are leaving the service and there's not a whole lot of support to begin with,
Mhm.
with that segue out. But then also, um, a lot of it even then is okay, do these women want to go into a career? You mentioned the government sector or working for a
Mhm.
company, working for corporate. But there's not a lot there with okay, how do I take someone who's been in the military as a woman to then now I want to help them build their own business. That's maybe not even a thought that, or maybe that's just an idea that they have, but the reality is they don't really talk about it. They haven't heard much about it because it's not
Mhm.
something that support that's offered for them with that transition. So yeah, I love
Yeah.
that piece that you're trying to create this community to fill the gap of, okay, I want to help women who are coming into civilian life, leaving the military with all that experience, all that knowledge, the skills that they've developed, and then how do we help them set up their own business? And,
Right.
there's so much, you mentioned there's so much of an emotional shift that happens, just like getting used to being able to speak your mind a little more freely, and,
Mhm.
and I think that's such a big piece of how do you help, like, guide them in that transition to civilian life. One, that's a whole, obstacle that they're dealing with already. And then it's okay now, but I want to start a business, which is another huge hurdle, I think, to try to get through. So it's almost offering two really big support systems for women going through that huge transition.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big piece of it for sure, the transition. It's like we talked about in our one-to-one. The military, they make you go through a course, right? And I can't remember, it's been a while for me since I went through, but I think it was
Mm-hmm.
like 3 or 4 days or something like that. And you go through the course and it's supposed to prepare you for the world outside of the military.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talk to you about getting a job and like healthcare benefits and what to expect and how to write a resume and things like that. And it may have changed a lot since I went through, because I think I went through in like 2009 through that course. But, me personally, there's a lot that I learned in addition to that. Like that course cannot capture all of the different things that you really go through on the outside. And ultimately, I felt like it was to kind of prevent me from getting out and trying to, change my mind into like staying in the military, which, it's like I told you, when somebody decides they want to get out, that's it. They made their decision and there's not a whole lot that can change their mind at that point. Like that's the point of no return. Right. So there really is no point in trying to talk somebody into staying in the military. It's like that's a waste of time. That person wants to get out. So set them up, like for real, set them up to be successful on the outside. What can they really expect? And I know that there are programs out there that work with, transitioning military. I've seen some, and, I just hope that what they're doing is like truly preparing military personnel to leave the military and enter the civilian space, because it's not easy.
Mhm.
Um, my experience my experience hasn't been extreme. I've seen some extreme situations of people who haven't adjusted well to being on the outside of the military. Mine has not been so extreme, but even in my circumstances, it hasn't been easy. There's an emotional thing that you go through in addition to, trying to find a job, which is hard to kind of, translate your military skills to where someone who has not been in the military can understand what you did.
Mhm.
I didn't understand that I was doing program management and portfolio management and all that kind of stuff at an early age until I got out and had been out for several years, went into corporate, and then understood exactly what a program manager does, what it
Mhm.
means to manage a portfolio, what it means to manage a project. Like, I'm like, oh, I've done all that stuff.
Yes.
And then when somebody else look at you and be like, no, you haven't. You're only like 25. And it's like, yeah, I have done that stuff, but they don't believe it, or they don't, or you can't convey properly in your resume or in the way that you speak, because military language is so different, right? And so it kind of goes over their heads. And then ultimately what happens is, I feel like I'm saying ultimately a lot.
Yeah.
What ends up happening is that person doesn't get hired for that job, even though they're beyond capable. So there's that aspect, which takes another toll on you emotionally. Military culture, right? That you feel a loss for that. When you leave the military, you don't have, there's nothing like it. And I'm sure, if there are any veterans that watch this or anybody in the military, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's nothing like that camaraderie that you have in the military. There's nothing like the dynamic when you meet a group of people and you work with a group of people that you vibe with. And a lot of us have, found that. I still have some of my longest friends I've had because of the military. And they're still in the military and I'm out, but we still connect like on another level. So you miss that when you get out. And I'm fortunate because I'm in Charlotte, where there's one of the largest veteran communities in the country. So, if I need like a connection or I need to get close to the military community as much as possible, then I can link back up with the veteran community here. But not everybody has that. There are some people who are in rural communities who maybe there's not a lot of veterans there. And also, veterans can be very misunderstood. The assumption a lot of times is that we are violent or we are mentally unstable, which is not true. There are some situations where, unfortunately, people do come out of the military with some challenges because of things that they have experienced. But we're not all violent. We're not all, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not all dangerous. Um, but we can sometimes be treated that way. And so there's a lot that you have to get used to and navigate when you come out of the military, and it's not easy.
Right. Yeah, and people go into the military for different reasons. I think
Mhm.
a lot of times, especially if you're going at a young age, it's to, seek out a better life for yourself. And
Mhm.
that's one avenue that you can take. If you're coming from a situation where there's not a lot of privilege or money, that I know that that's definitely like a way for people to feel like I'm getting out. I'm gonna get something better, and
Yeah.
then you serve and you get out, and yeah, like there are different reasons people go into it. And
Mhm.
my question that popped up while you're talking is, you know, I can see how there's a focus of people saying like, oh, these net, they might mentally unstable and like not. I feel like everybody, there's so many different people that are mentally unstable. It doesn't, I feel like it shouldn't be just, centered around one specific group of people, but I could understand how there's that stigma. But if you
Mhm.
kind of flipped the coin and said, what do you feel like are the top traits that people come out of in the military, specifically with women, and how that translates into their business journey?
Ooh, I love this question. So, tenacity, grit, fierceness, uh, fully capable, um, like I said earlier, reliable, um, knowledgeable. I can go down the list, like I can go down the laundry list, um, because we've been so well equipped. Like, just imagine you come out of high school and you go into military wasn't my first job, but if it doesn't matter if it was or wasn't your first job, right? You go into this job as essentially a baby, right? I was 18 years old, I was a baby, and they're like, you're in charge of the InfoSec program.
Hey,
And I'm
Dad.
like, what does that mean? What does it mean I'm in charge of the program? Okay. Figure it out. So
Yeah,
you sit down and you figure it out and you figure out how to do it, and not only how to do it, but how to kill it, you
yeah,
know, because you don't have a choice. And you are rated by evaluated rather. So you know how any job you're in, you get an evaluation annually. Um, you get a 6 month review, whatever, however you want to call it. But you are
Hi.
they'll sit up, they'll look at your performance and they'll say she knows what she's doing or she doesn't. And so if you don't know what you're doing, let's get her the training to make sure she knows what she's doing. And this starts at a young age. So you're working with people who have decades of experience, doing whatever it is that they're setting out to do in their business. They have decades of experience doing it. And so that's definitely my story. And I can think of several other women that I know personally, their story too. Sorry, my son was closing the door. Um, but yeah, like these are the people that you should be hiring.
yeah,
They know what the hell they're doing, and they've been doing it for a long time. They've been doing it since a very young age. So they've had decades and I mean, everybody's different. So not everybody's been in the military for decades, right? But like I said, for me, this would be 20 years for me if I was still in. So
yeah,
I've had 20 years of not only learning my craft, but perfecting it over all of that time.
mhm,
And I'm not just like I just graduated from my MBA program in 2016, but I've been doing this work since 2001.
right.
So the MBA enhanced my skill set. It didn't give me the skill set, if
Hmm.
that makes sense. So I'm not fresh to this. Like I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
And that's the advantage that the military gives us is that I'm not going to say it throws you to the wolves as soon as you go in, but essentially that's what happens. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, well, now that you've finished basic training and you've gone to, we call it tech school in the Air Force, you've gone to tech school to learn your job. Now you're in the actual Air Force and you're on your first duty station, and this is what you need to do: A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Mhm.
Now sit down and figure out how to do it. We'll walk you as your supervisor. I'll walk you through it, but you need to show us that you know how to do it. And it's not based on, I mean, you have to take tests and all that kind of stuff to move up in the ranks. But in order to show that you know how to do the job, you have to perform the job.
Mhm.
So it's not just your degrees that people look at and go, okay, so she knows about computer information systems or project management, right? You have proven that in the Air Force to your leadership by showing them, literally showing them that I know how to do this. I know how to take a computer apart and put it back together. And then you have somebody there that certifies, yes, I watched her take that computer apart and put it back together. She knows what she's doing. And so that's why veterans are very adept, very much.
Right. Yeah. So it almost is, if a woman I don't know if you're finding this, but in your community, if they're leaving the military, so they essentially have this skill set that they've been developing, perfecting, and probably have more years of experience than maybe most civilians. And then now they're entering this space of, okay, how do I start a business using the skill set that I have already, developed for so many years? So, they're not starting over, is what you're saying in that realm necessarily.
Right. Yeah, no, they're not starting over. They're not new, Um, they've pretty much been doing it, if whatever the job is that you do in the Air Force, right? So my job is very in the Air Force was very much what I do now. There might be some people who change it up, right? So they might do like IT like I did, and maybe they're doing something totally different now. Maybe they're doing interior design, right? There's something in that experience for that interior designer who was in the military that still sets them apart because of that military experience.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I didn't change much. Like I'm still in the same track of what I have been doing for the last 20 years. So I would consider myself an expert. Now, it's a little bit of a different landscape because I'm online now. So that's the learning curve that I have, to get used to. And I feel like I'm doing really well. But that's the difference for me, is that I know how to do my job, but now um, my circumstances have changed. I'm not working for somebody else, and it's all virtual now. So
Right.
I have to get used to that. But yeah.
Right. Yeah, and maybe you want to touch on this other aspect that you're helping women in the community is with the tech setup. So, you understand that in business, and I think especially you said leaving the military, there might be this, kind of feeling behind with some of the technology in some cases. So they're
Mhm.
leaving and then trying to start a business, but need help with getting those systems in place and doing it at a reasonable rate, not having
Mhm.
to pay an extraordinary amount, for a new business. And so that's the other piece that you have said that, you want to support them with, right?
Yeah, so that course that I was talking about that you have to go through in the military before you
Mm-hmm.
leave, it doesn't touch on business. It might have changed, like I said, I don't know, but when I went through, and I know there's some other people that I know that went through that course, and they didn't mention anything about a business component either,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you want to leave the military and you want to start a business, you pretty much have to go and find resources to help you do that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the military might have those resources too. I'm not sure, but um, it's definitely something that I was missing when when I decided to get out. I actually had an idea to start a virtual assisting business way back then when I got out. But again, didn't know what I was doing, and I couldn't find the resources. So I went back to work. But so that's a big piece that's missing. But also, I'm a certified online business manager, and so I know the systems that these 6 and 7 figure business owners use to run their business. So I want to create something that is accessible. Sorry, accessible for new business owners that maybe don't have such a large investment.
Yeah.
Or like my monthly retainer is not doable for somebody who's new in business. So I want to create something that is, helps veterans like start their online businesses, but in a way that is financially attainable. So here are all the systems that all the millionaire business owners use,
Yeah.
and this is how you can implement these things, these systems, these processes in your business from the beginning, right? So that you're setting yourself up for success from the beginning and not working yourself to death. And, because there's so much about like I love processes. So I love, managing processes, helping my clients manage their processes and, making improvements in those areas. And one thing about being a new business owner, even for myself, like I'm not, I don't fully have it all the way down because it's just me right now. Um, but there's a way to manage your time and manage your processes to where you're not killing yourself trying to get your business off the ground. And so those are the things I want to help people with.
Right. Yeah,
Hmm.
that makes sense. And I think it's going to be a great, it is happening in this
Hmm.
community. And if there are any female veterans that do watch this, how can they find this group if they want to to join or connect?
So right now, the only way, see, and I have to say this too, imperfect action. That's what I should have said earlier about what advice do I have for new business owners.
Yeah.
Take action. It doesn't matter if it's pretty or not. You just need to take action. So for my community, I have 5 or 6 founding members now. And I did a live, I told you about the live
Yeah.
I did in the community a few weeks back. And I was telling them, like, I'm all about that imperfect action life, which is why I keep taking steps forward in my business. You have to just do it. And I initially was just going to wait a few months before I launched the community, but I was like, why? Why wait? I have people who are showing interest in it. So I'm just going to put something together now and start kind of like releasing content and like meeting with my founding members and things like that. So that's what I've been doing. To find the group, Kellen, be quiet. To find the group, the easiest way to do that would be to email me. Because I don't have a website. I don't even have a name for the group yet, but it's launched and we are interacting and all the important things that need to be happening. So
Yes.
yeah.
Email in the caption. And thank you for Tarena created an Instagram account just to do this live. So
Yeah.
yeah, like you said,
Me and my issues with being seen, I was like, oh, I don't want to do that, but
yeah. So, okay. Well, if anybody, comes across this and wants to connect, I'll have your email in the caption of this. And yeah, I can connect you even, shoot a message to you on Instagram even to initially. If that's easier. So.
Yep. And I'm on Facebook, Tarena704. So either one of those works.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
I'm glad
Yeah.
that we were able to
I'm
do
gonna drop off of this. I'm gonna drop off the call and scream.
You were great, and
Thank
I love
you.
your story and having you share it on here, and I think it will resonate with a lot of other female veterans, hopefully that are seeking this support in their transition. So
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having
yeah,
me.
thank you,
And I will
Tarena.
see
I'll
you
see you soon.
tomorrow.
Yep, tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.